What's up, fight fans? Today we've got one of the wildest stories in boxing making waves everywhere. Jake Paul versus Gervonta "Tank" Davis, set to happen this November. Now, this isn't just another celebrity fight announcement. This one has fans buzzing for all the right and wrong reasons. On paper, it looks like pure spectacle. We're talking about a YouTuber turned boxer who walks around like a cruiserweight, lining up against one of the slickest, most explosive lightweights of our generation. Yeah, the same Gervonta Davis who's built his career off highlight reel knockouts at 135 pounds. The hype is real, but so are the concerns. So, let's break down the facts, the weight class difference, and why this matchup has everyone debating whether it's boxing or just entertainment. First, let's look at Jake Paul. Since 2020, Jake has gone from internet star to legitimate pay-per-view attraction. He's fought names like Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, Nate Diaz, and most recently, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Unlike most celebrity boxers, Jake has stayed consistent in training, picking up real boxing fundamentals along the way. At 6 feet 1 inch tall and usually weighing in around 190 to 200 pounds, Jake fights in the cruiserweight range. That's a division with a weight limit of 200 pounds, and in some cases, Jake has even pushed into heavyweight territory. Size is one of his biggest weapons, and he's used it effectively against smaller opponents. But here's the twist. His next target is someone much smaller. On the flip side, Gervonta "Tank" Davis has carved his legacy in boxing's lighter weight classes. Tank's natural fighting weight is lightweight, which means 135 pounds. Throughout his career, he's also competed at super featherweight and even super lightweight, which caps at 140 pounds. But the key word here is natural. Tank is built for speed, explosiveness, and sharp counterpunching. He doesn't rely on size. He relies on timing and devastating knockout power relative to his division. That's why many fans are shaking their heads at the idea of him stepping into the ring with Jake Paul, a guy who could outweigh him by 50 or 60 pounds on fight night. Let's put that into perspective. In boxing, weight classes exist for a reason. They're meant to keep fights fair and safe, preventing huge mismatches in size. A 50-pound difference is practically unheard of in professional boxing. To give you an idea, that's like a featherweight suddenly jumping up to face a cruiserweight champion. It's not just about the weight number on the scale. It's about reach, durability, and power. Jake Paul naturally carries a much larger frame, while Gervonta Davis is used to fighting opponents who are closer in size. That's why this fight is being labeled as an exhibition rather than a sanctioned professional bout. So, what exactly does exhibition mean in this case? Unlike professional fights, exhibitions don't count on the fighter's official records. They often include modified rules to prioritize safety, like shorter rounds, bigger gloves, or no official judge's decision. But here's the kicker. Exhibitions can still pack arenas and sell massive pay-per-view numbers. Think of Floyd Mayweather's exhibitions with Logan Paul and Deji. Fans tune in not just for competition, but for curiosity, entertainment, and drama. And with Jake Paul and Tank Davis, that curiosity factor is through the roof. Reports suggest that if this fight happens, it'll likely be contested at a catchweight around 190 or 195 pounds. That's basically Jake Paul's comfort zone. For Gervonta Davis, that means jumping up 5 or 6 weight classes. This isn't just unusual, it's historic. Fighters rarely move up more than 2 divisions at once, let alone half a dozen. Tank would be giving up size in every department: height, reach, natural weight, and raw mass. And while he has incredible knockout power at lightweight, power doesn't always translate the same way when you're punching up at someone 50 pounds heavier. Now let's talk about the advantages. For Jake Paul, the biggest edge is obvious: size and strength. He'll be able to absorb punches differently than Davis's typical opponents. And his jab plus reach could keep Tank at a distance. For Gervonta Davis, the advantage is speed, timing, and experience. He's the far more polished boxer, with over 30 pro fights under his belt, most of them wins by knockout. So while Jake has the physical tools, Tank has the technical edge. The real question becomes, can Tank's skill set neutralize Jake's size? This matchup also highlights the ongoing debate about Jake Paul's boxing career. Critics argue that Jake cherry-picks opponents, older MMA fighters, smaller boxers, or names outside their prime. Supporters counter by saying Jake has consistently taken risks, stepping up against more experienced fighters while continuing to improve. Facing Gervonta Davis is another example of this balancing act. It's both a huge risk and a fight that critics will still call unfair, but it guarantees attention. Whether you like him or not, Jake knows how to stay relevant. From Gervonta Davis's perspective, fans are asking why. Why take on an exhibition against Jake Paul instead of continuing his campaign at lightweight, where big money fights against names like Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney are waiting? The answer is simple: money and exposure. An exhibition against Jake Paul could bring Tank a payday bigger than some of his title defenses. Plus, it introduces him to a new audience, people who may not follow traditional boxing, but will tune in for spectacle. For Tank, it's low risk in terms of career record, but potentially high reward financially. But here's where the concerns come in. Boxing purists worry that these types of matchups blur the lines between sport and entertainment. When a lightweight world champion fights a cruiserweight YouTuber, it doesn't look like competition, it looks like a circus. And while exhibitions don't count on the record, injuries are still very real. A 50-pound difference means that even if Jake doesn't land clean shots, the sheer weight behind his punches could be dangerous. That's why critics are calling for clear rules, safety protocols, and perhaps even restrictions on how hard the fighters can go. Still, there's no denying that Jake Paul has become one of boxing's biggest attractions. Whether you see him as a disruptor or a gimmick, he has single-handedly brought new fans to the sport. Every time he fights, the headlines pour in, social media lights up, and pay-per-view buys spike. And by targeting Gervonta Davis, Jake isn't just chasing money. He's targeting one of the most respected names in boxing today. It's a move that ensures maximum publicity, even if it raises serious doubts about fairness. So what can fans actually expect from this matchup? If it goes through, the fight will likely lean more toward entertainment than pure boxing competition. Expect a lot of build-up, trash talk, and marketing. Expect Tank Davis to showcase his slick movement, while Jake tries to use his jab and size advantage, and expect the broadcast to sell this as a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle. At the end of the day, fans won't tune in for technical boxing. They'll tune in to see if the small guy can somehow shock the big guy, or if Jake Paul finally bites off more than he can chew. Looking at history, we've seen strange size matchups before. Floyd Mayweather fought Logan Paul in an exhibition with a massive size gap. Manny Pacquiao once jumped multiple divisions to fight bigger opponents. But none of those examples involved a difference as extreme as Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. That's what makes this so fascinating. It's pushing the boundaries of what boxing fans are used to, for better or worse. As of now, an exact date hasn't been locked in, but November is the target month. Reports suggest it could take place in Las Vegas or New York, two major boxing hubs in the United States. Until contracts are finalized, everything is still technically up in the air. But one thing's for sure, the conversation isn't slowing down anytime soon. Whether you're a hardcore boxing fan or just someone who watches Jake Paul for the drama, this fight is already one of the most talked about events of the year. So here's the bottom line. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis is less about belts or records and more about spectacle. It's David versus Goliath, but flipped, because this time, Goliath isn't the more experienced fighter, and David isn't the smaller underdog in terms of skill. It's size versus skill, YouTube versus boxing pedigree, and entertainment versus tradition. Will it live up to the hype?